Hello and welcome to the Results with Ronnie podcast. I am Ronnie Walker, your master coach of exceptional relationships and sex. And today, we're going to talk about women blaming men, men blaming women, and why it's a waste of time and avoiding accountability is to blame. Now, this podcast is brought to you by Results with Ronnie. An exceptional relationship starts here. And the YouTube sensation and talk show, Balanced with Diana J. You can look for it on YouTube at Balanced with Diana J, covering a myriad of topics I truly believe is inspirational, motivational, and very informational to many couples and singles. So, we have a situation of women blaming men and men blaming women. Well, for what? What exactly is this blame thing going on? Well, I hope to cover some of the topics. But, it's really hard to surf the world of social media and not come upon many channels, blogs, Facebook posts where someone's complaining about something. But what I do see, especially particularly in the black community, is this blame game that's going on. Now, does that mean that there aren't some reasons that it's possible that they may have some points to make? Rightfully so. Absolutely. I would be the first to tell you that. The challenge that I have with that thinking from time to time is that you will find those that believe that it's only because of things outside of their control that things are the way they are. And I really have challenges with that line of thinking. Without going into a long diatribe, let me just go over some of the things that women complain about men. One is protection, or more specifically, lack thereof. To a lot of women, they don't feel protected by men. However, I've never seen that to be the case. In fact, I see scores and scores of videos, blogs, pages, speaking how grateful that they are to the men in their life, be it a family member, friend, or someone in they're in an intimate relationship with. But the one thing that I find about social media in of itself is that it has the power to take a very minuscule situation and make it seem larger than life. And I truly believe in a lot of ways that's by design. But just as it could benefit many, it could also be used in a very negative way. Now, does that mean that those that have suffered some form of a lack of protection, that they should not be acknowledged and a solution addressed? Absolutely. I'm definitely not trying to dismiss those who feel that they are not being protected. And that needs to be addressed. But to think that all men are not out here protecting women, and again, more specifically, black men not protecting black women, I just don't go along with that train of thought. In my experience, in my journeys, I see far too many examples of men protecting their sisters, their mothers, their daughters, their aunts, co-workers. There are men that have risked their lives for women they don't even know. So what is another thing that women complain about men? Lousy sex. Now, again, with that being said, are there some situations where a man is coming from a very selfish space and he's only worried about his satisfaction? Absolutely. But to think that it's all men, and sometimes in my sex consultations, I'll ask, is there anything that they could have done that may have changed the outcome in the love making? The first time, the second time, Are there many times throughout the relationship? And of course, first reflex is no. Until you dig a little deeper and then you find that they could have done some things different. First, by communicating what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. So how does it get to that point? Well, dig a little deeper and you'll find that there's this belief that as a man, he should already know, especially if he's a certain age, that he should already know how a woman works. Then upon explaining that, you're talking about a man who came from a relationship of 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever years, and work for that woman may not work for you. Because we're not trying to say all women are the same, and they're pleased the same sexually. And it's really unfair to think this man automatically, by mind reading, knowing what you like and don't like. And this is where the communication comes in. So again, of course, it's his responsibility to find out and initiate the conversation. But if she didn't see that forthcoming, then it's her to make sure that that's communicated. Because I would never want to see a woman suffer sexually, nor would I want to see a man. But having it where it's only one side can only lead to more problems in a relationship later. But that doesn't stop certain women from saying that it's got nothing to do with them and everything to do with men. And they put it on blast. What's the third thing that women complain about? Their bad choices. I can speak to 1, 2, 15 different women who've had 3 or more different bad relationships. And they will all tell you that it's got nothing to do with them. It's who they attract. And I'm sorry, you're sure it's not who you choose to entertain? Somehow, every single bad relationship or bad man that they've been in a relationship with, it's totally his fault. And they were the angel. Now, we all know we all play a part in who we end up with. Either we choose to pursue a person or we choose to entertain someone who is pursuing us. And it's up to us, in using our discernment and whatever various goals that we have, to make sure that that person is going to be good for us. But if it doesn't, we can't put all the onus on the man. That's just unfair. But nonetheless, it happens over and over and over again. One of the things that women complain about men is a double standard. The double standard that exists within the world as we know it. Now, of course, I'll be the first to tell you there are those things that men have double standards about that they exploit exclusively. And it's unfair. However, there are those double standards that women benefit from, and they don't complain about that. But for some reason, all double standards are because of men. That's just a side note of a conversation that I had with a group of people. I think it was in California, Colorado. I can't remember where it was. But it was an interesting conversation, and someone brought that up. In that same conversation, and in various conversations throughout the years, have been blaming men for the beauty standards that we have today. However, my challenge with that is I look at all the beauty magazines that's going on. Shows, YouTube channels, all of this that talks about beauty. What's in, what's out, what's hot, what's not. What's old school, new school, what's retro, name it. And to me, as we all know, those terms are not made up by men. These are women. Women create these beauty standards. Now, mind you, men partake in a lot of that because, of course, they're the ones that's liking the pictures, whistling, catcalling, whatever it is, a thing men do, good, bad, or otherwise. Yes, I'm sure there are men that you speak to who would love miniskirts as opposed to long skirts, tight pants as opposed to loose-fitting pants. But I would argue that men play the biggest part in beauty standards. Yet, that is something that a percentage of women speak to and complain that men have created, and it's their fault, that they have to meet these standards. Okay. Another is divorce rates. Now, this is a pretty tricky area in that women initiate the majority of divorces in this country. Now, one would have you believe that the reasons for the divorce were always because of men, but ladies, you know, if we're being honest, that's not it. In fact, there are talk show after talk show. There are blogs, there are, you name it, all over social media. Well, there'll be women who made the mistake of initiating a divorce. They regret it. Many thought the grass was greener on the other side. They felt that they were married too young, and so now they're going to go out while they still have some years left. And so they leave a person who, for all intents and purposes, was doing a wonderful job in providing, protecting, and raising the family. There are those who, a week after being married, decide they no longer want to be married anymore. 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, she decides to get up, and because of some epiphany, she decides to leave. Although there are studies that will show the reasons for the divorce are either from infidelity and lack of money. So it's a strange conversation to have when you speak to people in different parts of the country and different parts of the world when we're talking about divorce. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm sticking to the divorce rates in this country and the reasons for divorce. But as you speak to some women, it's all the fault of men that there are divorces. Then men get blamed for what many choose to call toxic masculinity. Now, again, to me, that's a word that's just been overused, overplayed, overquoted. I can create a whole nother podcast just discussing why that even came into existence. Many believe it was something that is the invention of the femininity movement. Whatever it is, in many cases, as I speak to women to define what toxic masculinity is, it usually comes down to just men being men. In other words, the way women solve problems are different than the way a man will solve a problem. But sometimes because he doesn't solve it the way she solves it, sometimes he's being toxic. Or the discussion, communication. Men communicate different than women. But if she doesn't like the way he communicates, he's being toxic. Have a discussion, she doesn't agree with his points, he's toxic. The way he may speak to her concerning things that she's wearing or not wearing, toxic. It's amazing the levels that women will go to use that word toxic against men. And the complaint goes on and on and on. So, it's interesting that it seems to me that in many cases, there are those women that have not accepted that men are just different than women are. Or they're trying far too hard to try to get men to be more like women, and when that result doesn't come to pass, well, there we go, back to why women complain about men. Another thing that women complain about men, dating standards. Things have changed in the world of dating. The rules of engagement have changed. And it's all men's fault. You have men out there that are all about 50-50. He pays half the bills, she pays half the bills. He pays half of the date, she pays half the date, 50-50. And it's driving certain women crazy. Men should always do this. Men should always do that. And if he was a real man, this is a list of what he would do. And if he was a real man, this is a list of what he should say when speaking to a woman. And this is a real man, then, well, the sky's the limit. But the standards that there are now, women are having challenges with. Although in many cases, I see where you have modern women still wanting to do modern things because they're different now. They're not their mothers or grandmothers, and so they're modern women. But yet, when they're looking for the men that they're hoping to date, they want him to be a traditional man. And if you hear the men that are caping for the 50-50, if you ask those men, they'll tell you, A, this is the modern way of dating. We're modern men. Or, since women want to be equal in every aspect of things that being what men do, well, this is part of it. Dating is part of it, and in part of dating, if we're going to be equal, then either pay for the date as well once in a while, or we're going to go half. For them, that's an equal compromise. Well, right, wrong, fair, or unfair, women are complaining about it. Now, I'm not one of those who's going to go into most women, half the women, and then we're getting to the details of it's 90% or 93.6, 88.4. No. I'm just sharing this information, again, as all my podcasts, is to continue the discussion, the conversation. Now, of course, there are many more things that I can sit here and list that women complain about men, but I'm really trying to keep this brief with just enough time that if you feel to share your thoughts and critiques concerning this podcast, just write some notes down and send them in to resultswithronnie@gmail.com, resultswithronnie@gmail.com. Okay, now with that list out of the way, what is it that men complain about women for? Well, the first one is protection. Many men do believe they protect their women and women in general, and they want women to stop this narrative spreading of they not providing and protecting women. They are. What's number two? Lousy sex. Many men feel as well that they have their side of the story and that the lousy sex doesn't always happen from the men's side. It's women. Women that expect men to read their minds. It's women that are not adventurous, spontaneous, taking the initiative, not following what some will say proper hygiene, you name it. These are things that they feel men women take part in when it comes to sex. Men also blame women for their bad choices. And just like the women, to me, I'm not buying that. Somehow men will have you believe that these women just manipulated their way and put on this facade of being a perfect woman, and then once she got the ring, she turns into Medusa. No. No, 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 no. You have to own that. Another thing that men complain about, the double standards of women. Do they exist? Ladies, you know they exist. But like women, I tell the men, there are many double standards that men perpetrate. And they take full advantage of it. But somehow to these men, women are responsible for all of the double standards. Men also blame women for the current beauty standards. Some of them like it. Some of them hate it. When it comes to the lashes, when it comes to the hair, when it comes to the way they dress in certain spaces. Men are forever complaining about it. Things that they can't control. And to me, it's a waste of time. Let women be women. And yes, just like women, there are men who refuse to accept that they're not going to be like women. In certain spaces. They're just not going to get, listen, women have been taking longer than men to get ready forever and a day. And for some reason, trends come and go with women. And men, for some reason, or there are some men that feel that they need to police that. And no, that's no. Plain and simply no. Now, I don't know what man in their right mind feels that he's going to die on that hill, but I'm quick to point that out. I'm like, brother, just let that go. If they want to wear hair attachments, let them wear. If they want to have a wig, let them wear a wig. If they want their lashes, you don't have to like them. Find the women and the space and the beauty standards that you appreciate and go there. But stop taking up this battle cry of trying to take women to a space that they're going to get ready like men. It's just not going to happen. So stop complaining about it. Men also complain about the divorce rate. More so the narrative of that the divorce rate is that high because exclusively about men. As if women don't commit acts of infidelity, they do. And that there are those women who initiated divorce proceedings in situations that they felt everything was fine. A lot of men felt blindsided by it. But yet, even when it's the fault of the woman, this narrative is still being perpetuated that it's the man's fault. And so this is something that they complain about. Another thing they complain about is women being women. And I did touch on that a little earlier. Gentlemen, one of the things we have to be clear about is that we appreciate women for being women. Now, does that mean we're going to get along and we're going to be compatible with every woman out there? Of course not. But here's the kicker. Gentlemen, even some of the women that you're attracted to and you like to build a relationship with, you may not meet her standards and what she's looking for. And by that, her standards is, if she has a certain beauty regimen, she shouldn't have to change that just because you say that. If she wants to, then that's her choice. but those are her standards of beauty. And to think that you're going to go in and change that just because you want her to be a part of your life, that's just an L you're going to end up taking, I can assure you that. Which then leads into the dating standards. Many men complain about that because they're in the space that if women want to be equal in all of these spaces, well, dating should be one of them. And if you're expecting men to pay for dates, then those men are expecting for women to pay for dates. Or at the very least meeting halfway in 50-50. Now again, I've covered this before in previous podcasts. You do what you want to do in your dating space. I can tell you what Ronnie does, what Ronnie won't do. But funny enough, I've even talked to a number of women who have no problem with the 50-50 rule. Again, not my preference, but there are those women, for reasons of safety, or just because they don't want to feel obligated, they have no problem with paying 50% of a date. Go figure. But if this is the times that we're in, well then, so be it. But with that being said, men are complaining, and here's where I think they go wrong. They're too busy trying to pursue women who won't do the 50-50 instead of pursuing the women who will do the 50-50. So in this space, men, and what are you complaining for? There are women that are out there that have no problem with that. Then date at that level. But stop frustrating yourself or dating up to women that are not with the 50-50 program, and the men should pay for the dates. That's their choice. That's their right. Because there are men who have no problem of paying for the dates. So take the list of what women complaining about men about and what men are complaining about with women, and here's something that you will notice if you listened and took notes. The lists are exactly the same. Which brings me to the whole purpose of this podcast. Everyone's complaining, but what I found overall, and listening to many men and listening to many women, is that everyone's complaining, and so many are not taking accountability to their own actions. There are men who have challenges of being held accountable to decisions that they've made, and there are women who have challenges with being held accountable to decisions that they've made. And there's far too much of trying to change each other's minds to the way things are. Instead of just saying, hey, this is who I am as a woman, this is who I am as a man, and I'm going to move forward in my respective space. And so if, for instance, again, if we're talking about dating, if I am going to date, and I believe in paying only half of the date, well then make sure that the woman you choose to pursue is on the same page as you. They are out there. Women, if you have no problem with that, make that known. There's far too much blaming and not enough solutions and not enough meeting each other where they are. No one wants to hear anything. No one wants to listen. Everybody just wants to complain, complain, complain. And I know we can do better because there are many examples of better being done. But if you're going to stay in that space, that very low vibrational space, then I can assure you this is what you're going to end up with. Frustrated and yet another Facebook post, another YouTube channel that you're listening to or creating, complaining about men. There's not enough men. And the few men that are out there, they're all married, or they're all cheaters. And this story goes on and on and on and on, and they repeat it. And the men are complaining. These women aren't loyal. These women are materialistic. They're all gold diggers. And they go on and on and on. When in fact, there are some good quality women out there, and there are some good quality men. But I can assure you, you are not going to meet them in any way, shape, or form because you're too busy in a very negative space complaining about each other. So, I've gone on for about 30 minutes, and I think I pretty much covered enough to at least give you something to think about, something to talk about or ask about a friend of the opposite sex, of what you can do so that we can come together. And if you have challenges in getting to that space, well, I need you to reach out, and you go to resultswithronnie.com. That's resultswithronnie.com, and book a consultation. And I can assure you I can provide the results that you're looking for to get you on that right track. Because at some point, the complaining has to stop. You can listen to other podcasts on MrRelationshipMan.com. That's MrRelationshipMan.com. And there are other podcasts there covering a variety of subjects. So I thank you for tuning in. Again, my name is Ronnie Walker, Master Coach of Exceptional Relationships and Sex, and I thank you for listening to the latest podcast series of the Results with Ronnie podcast series. I wish you well in your journey for meeting the one that you want in your life. And again, if you have challenges in an area, reach out to resultswithronnie.com. Also, want to let the gentleman know that I have a brand new website that's providing resources for grown men, and that is MrRelationshipManCave.com. This is a space for us men that I have resources for fitness, resources for dealing with sexual wellness, also resources for men and their mental health. I truly believe men should see the physical doctor, and men should see coaching and therapy when you're dealing with some of the challenges in life, because not all of us handle it the same. So I want us men to become better, be better, so we can be the person we need to be for the women that are out there looking for us. So again, I thank you. My name is Ronnie Walker, and I wish you both men and women the best. Until again.